Welcome back to another video. As you would have seen from the title and thumbnail, you would know that this is a dedicated cozy reading vlog where I read books chosen by you. You as in my Instagram followers, friends, everything. Not sure when it's gonna be the next time I do this, but if you would like to look out for it, you can follow my Instagram, my bookstagram. But yeah, so what I did was I actually posted this post over here where I asked for help choosing my autumn reads because I had too many good reads that I wanted to read. So I am going to be reading the 3 books and I'll try to fit in the graphic novels as well. Based on all the comments that I got, thank you so much if you're watching for commenting. I actually compiled the entries into an Excel spreadsheet. So this is my spreadsheet over here with all the books and the number of votes everything got, as well as the IG handles of all the people who helped me to choose. And yeah, as you would have seen from what I'm showing you now, you would see that these are the 3 books that I'm going to be reading for this vlog, which was quite a fun thing to do, honestly. So maybe I'll repeat this idea again next year. Maybe I'll just reuse the rest of the books from here. We shall see. So you can let me know if you have any ideas as well. Okay, I have 2 of the 3 in physical format over here. So the 2 books are over here, Caraval and Nevermore. Is it Caraval? Caraval? I feel like I've heard Caraval more often. Let me know. So let me just tell you what each book is about first. So we'll start with the physical ones first, and I'm actually just started reading Nevermore, The Trials of Morrigan Crow. I'll just read you the blurb. Morrigan Crow is cursed. Born on Eventide, the unluckiest day for any child to be born, Morrigan is blamed for all local misfortunes, and worst of all, the curse dooms her to die at midnight on her 11th birthday. But as Morrigan awaits her fate, a remarkable man named Jupiter North appears, whisking her away into the safety of a secret magical city called Nevermore. It's in Nevermore that Morrigan discovers she must contend for a place in the city's most prestigious organization, the Wondrous Society. Morrigan must compete in 4 dangerous trials against hundreds of other children, or she'll have to confront her deadly fate. I kind of wanted a cozy read, like it was time. I'm finally reading all my cozy books because I'm very much feeling the vibes of fall. Although many people are in the October Halloween feels now, I'm still in my cozy time. I'm still reading mysteries and thrillers for this month or so, so it's just like a mix of both. But anyway, Nevermore. I really just started. I'm on page 2. Okay, so let me insert a clip of me starting this book over here with the audiobook.
Howshot Audio presents
Nevermore, The Trials of Morrigan Crow. Written by Jessica Townsend and read by Gemma Whelan.
Prologue.
Did you hear how beautiful the audiobook sounded? Like, oh my gosh, like it's very rare in my opinion for like an audiobook to have such good music that fits the vibes of the book so well. It really gave me like the instant fall vibe, and oh my gosh, definitely recommend the audiobook. Even though I'm on page 2, the vibes that I got from it are just wow. So I'll be listening to the audiobook and reading along with the physical book, maybe even the ebook as well. So yeah, looking forward to enjoying some light cozy reads after so long. Also, there's like really cute illustrations. Not all, it's just like the one that I saw just now. Like for example, the prologue, there's this raven over here, and then in chapter 1 there is this image over here. So oh my god, I'm very excited. Yeah, so I'm finally gonna be reading this. And the next one is Caraval, which was very kindly sent to me in a book exchange in Singapore among people in Bookstagram. I don't even know who sent this to me because the person didn't include a note, but I don't know if the person might be watching. I don't think so, but if the person is watching, thank you so much. So Caraval, I feel like I should have started off by letting you know how many votes. Okay, let's let you know now. Okay, I think we're going in ascending order, so it's fine. Nevermore got 5 votes and Caraval got 6 votes. So Caraval is about Scarlet Drachna, who has never left the tiny island where she and her beloved sister Tella live with their powerful and cruel father. For years, Scarlet has written letters to Master Legend requesting an invitation to Caraval, a mysterious travelling performance in which the audience participates in the show. And for years, she never received a response, but this year is different. This year, Scarlet receives her long dreamt of invitation and is whisked away to the show with her sister. Only as soon as they arrive, Tella is kidnapped by Legend. It turns out that this year's Caraval revolves around Tella, and whoever finds her first is the winner. Scarlet has been told that everything that happens during Caraval is only an elaborate performance. Nevertheless, she soon becomes enmeshed in a game of magic, love and heartbreak. And whether Caraval is real or not, Scarlet must find Tella before the 5 nights of the game are over, or a dangerous domino effect of consequences will be set off, and her sister will disappear forever. I was honestly very scared to start this or even consider picking it up because I read The Night Circus and I honestly thought it was fine. I didn't really enjoy it that much. Since this is also about a circus, I wasn't really that intrigued. But many of you have voted for it, and it was the second book to receive the highest number of votes, so I'm gonna give it a try and hopefully it will be good and give me all the autumn cozy vibes that I am looking for. Both are starts to a new series, so I don't think I'll be able to finish both series this year since it's already October, but I guess it'll be for next year. And then the book that took everybody's heart and it won the whole thing by a large lead was House in the Cerulean Sea, and I'm honestly not surprised because it's really super hyped and I'm very excited for it also. I think of all three, I most expect to enjoy House in the Cerulean Sea, and I'll be very sad if I somehow don't enjoy it. So the pressure is on. Okay, anyway, House in the Cerulean Sea, if you don't already know what it's about, let me read you the blurb. Linus Baker lives a quiet, solitary life. At 40, he lives in a tiny house with a devious cat and his old records. As a caseworker at the department in charge of magical youth, he spends his days overseeing the well-being of children in government-sanctioned orphanages. When Linus is unexpectedly summoned by extremely upper management, he's given a curious and highly classified assignment: travel to Marsyas Island Orphanage, where 6 dangerous children reside. A gnome, a sprite, a wyvern, an unidentified green blob, a were-Pomeranian, and the Antichrist. Linus must set aside his fears and determine whether or not they're likely to bring about the end of these. But the children aren't the only secret the island keeps. Their caretaker is the charming and enigmatic Arthur Parnassus, who will do anything to keep his ward safe. As Arthur and Linus grow closer, long-held secrets are exposed and Linus must make a choice: destroy a home or watch the world burn. So I've already read Under the Whispering Door by the same author, and I gave it 4 stars, I think. I honestly think and hope House in the Cerulean Sea will be better than Under the Whispering Door. Just wanted to add in also that all 3 books I'm currently using for prompts for Nightmare on Simp Street, which is a month-long readathon hosted by Throne of Pages on YouTube on her Discord. But okay, let me just let you know what prompts it will cross off, I guess. So House in the Cerulean Sea will cross off read a book with a magical being in it. Caraval will cross off the prompt read a book someone else picks for you. Technically all 3 can be counted for this prompt, but I just chose that book for that prompt. And Nevermore will cross off an even number of pages because it has 461 pages. I will update you when I have gotten more progress into Nevermore. So yeah, let the video begin. I'm so excited. Hopefully we do something 4 related in this video also. Yeah. coming in to update. I am almost done with Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow. These are my tabs so far. Okay, so I am at page 360 out of 461. 100 pages left. Oh my gosh. Okay, I don't think I have even told you my thoughts on this so far. I think the last time I updated, I was at page 2. I really enjoy the plot of this so much. There are all these different trials which makes the book so much more exciting, and as you watch Morgan go through all these trials, you kind of get hooked and want to see how she will face each trial in her own way, and it's just so incredible. Okay, let's briefly talk about the tab so far. This color over here, this one, is for when the what the hell kind of moments. Either the characters are being very mean to Morgan. Then green over here, the second one, is when it is amusing. This one is a slightly darker yellow. It's about parts I'm suspicious about. So I'm suspicious of a current character, which has proven to be true. Pink or like reddish over here is affection. Yeah, so when I feel like the characters are feeling affectionate of another character. And I think the last tab color is purple. This one, I can't really describe the colors. This one is when I feel like the writing is really good. I can't wait to see how this ends because we are building up towards the last trial, which is, I don't really consider this a spoiler, but I guess I'll just put a spoiler warning. It's basically when they have to show off their necks, which is their skill, so on and so forth. All along, Morgan doesn't know what her neck is. She just knows that based on whatever happened in her old town, she was cursed. Everybody believes she's cursed because she was born on Eventide. And so she's blamed for all the local misfortunes, and it would make me so angry at the start because they're blaming her for making comments about the weather, making eye contact with people. Like, what? How can you put all this on a child? But yeah, oh my god, I just realized that this cover, this is Fenestra, I think, the Magnificat. Oh my god, I think the Magnificat fan is my favorite character so far. I feel like this book, the plot and the writing is stronger than the characters, but the characters still hold up to some extent, which is why I'm quite enjoying this so far. I think I mentioned I was reading this and listening to the audiobook at the same time, which I absolutely recommend you to do so as well. Not sure whether I'll be tempted to buy the other 2 books in this series. Maybe I'll just read the rest via ebook, but we shall see how. And yeah, I'll just update again once I'm done with this book. Same day, just a few hours later, it is night now. I have finished Nevermore. The tabs look like this. Trigger warnings as always. Trigger warnings for emotional abuse by parents, bullying, and child neglect. In the end, I decided to give this 4 stars because I really enjoyed the trials element, and I think I also mentioned that there was this mystery, right? I'm not sure how I didn't see this because it seemed quite obvious when it was time for the review, but I didn't expect it. I didn't see it coming. Maybe my brain was just turned off, but yeah, I didn't see it coming. It was just like, oh, so that's what we were building up towards, you know? I'm actually very excited to get to the next book, which I think is Wondersmith, The Calling of Morgan Crow. Very much excited, and yes, it did have all the cozy vibes that I wanted in a book because there was this autumn vibe and then it was building up to Halomas. It seemed like a combination of Halloween and Christmas, and then we have actual like winter during Christmas time with all the snow and everything. So it was like a very good progression. So yeah, I'm very happy that I read this to get me into the vibes. But yeah, very good start to this video. I managed to borrow Garlic and the Vampire from the library. I can't believe that this was in the children's section, like this beautiful graphic novel. Did I feel bad for borrowing this from the children's section? Yes, but also there was literally nobody at the library when I went to get it, and I don't think that it should be limited by whatever age books are ascribed to. So very excited to read this. I feel like this is more of like a cozy vibes than a creepy vibes, which is why I'm including this in this video instead. I'll update you whenever I have more updates.
the one way. Oh, I'm gonna win ya. I'm gonna get you one way.
To ある町のとある喫茶店のとある席には不思議な都市伝説がある。
New grass buds, the frenzied yellow of a flapping bird's feathers. He'd finally written back. She read the letter again, and then again, and again. Her eyes took in each sharp stroke of ink.
Hi! To update, I have started and am more than halfway through Caraval already. Okay, essentially it's about Scarlett, who has been writing to Legend, who created Caraval, this mysterious travelling performance in which the audience participates in the show. So she has been writing to him ever since she was young, trying to get him to come to her hometown because she cannot leave her hometown. In her last letter to him, she was saying how she doesn't need him to come anymore because she's getting married, and only then Legend replies her with a letter saying that he's inviting her and her fiancé to come to Caraval. So he gave her tickets and everything. Now she is in the midst of participating in Caraval already. She's trying to rescue her sister, Donatella, also known as Tella, because she has been kidnapped for the game. And so all the participants are trying to find Tella because the clue said that she was last seen with Legend. So if you find Tella, you will find Legend as well. So this is like the clue. So it's kind of like mixed media also, which is quite interesting. I have no idea why the book opens like this, like both sides, which I don't really like, but oh well. At the start of this book, I was very bored and I almost wanted to DNF, but I wanted to push through at the same time because this is a recommendation by my friends on Bookstagram. So I pushed through and I'm listening to the audiobook to this as well. So I'm listening to it at 3 times speed while I read the physical book, which has made things go faster such that I can read it more quickly as well. So now I'm at page 232 out of 402. So more than halfway, as I mentioned. Actually, I'm kind of enjoying it now. Previously, I thought it would be like 2.5 stars, but now I guess it's about like 3 to 4 in that range. So I'm very excited to continue reading this and to see whether at the end I'll continue with this trilogy or not. But I do get the autumn vibes because of how whimsical everything in this world is. It kind of reminds me of the time when I read Heartless by Marissa Meyer because of like the Alice in Wonderland whimsical vibes. This book has been compared to The Night Circus a lot because of how both involve circuses, but I can see the differences, but I also can see why people would compare it as well. Personally, I didn't really enjoy The Night Circus as much as everybody else is, but this one, I feel like between the two, right now I'm enjoying this one more because I enjoy the game part of this more. The Night Circus was more of like flowery writing and whimsy. This one is more of like the actual game itself, and the game is like scavenger hunt kind of thing, which I personally enjoy more. And where I just stopped at in the book, something very shocking happened. So I'm kind of eager to get back into this really soon. So yeah, update you again when I'm done with the book or if I have any more updates while reading the second half. Oh my god. This was the only thing I had for a costume. Yes, I'm just gonna sit and read Garlic and the Vampire. And there is a hole here. Great. The dedication is unreal, man. Okay, let's go. Oh my god, okay, I'm feeling all the dark academia vibe suddenly. Like with this cushion, this blouse, the necklace and the ring. Yeah, this is a once-off thing. So I am here because I actually finished Caraval a few days ago already. So here are my tabs. Let's talk about trigger warnings first, as always. Trigger warnings for parent abandonment, parental abuse, which is physical, blood, death, kidnapping, murder, and violence. In the end, I decided to give it 3 stars. Let me check what I gave The Night Circus. So it's a bit higher than The Night Circus. I gave The Night Circus 2.5 stars. Yeah, I didn't really enjoy that one in the end. It really reminded me of Alice in Wonderland with the madness of legend and things like that. And unfortunately, I will not be continuing on with this series because I don't really feel the need to continue. And nothing much about this book really sucked me in and made me feel like, oh, I think I can read another book or finish this trilogy. So I think this book ended off on a note where I am okay with to stop. And I was looking at the Goodreads reviews by my Goodreads friends and I realized that this book is actually quite divisive. So there were people giving 5 stars, there were people giving 1 star and things like that. I guess 3 stars is not a bad rating, but it's just not something that I would think about again or would necessarily want to keep. So I think I'll be unhauling this, which is quite sad because this was from the book swap. Let me actually find the postcard. So the postcard is like that, which says Pincushion Cactus, and the person was very sweet. My Secret Santa basically, who wrote quite a long postcard and put some stickers and stuff. The person said that it was a pretty good read for them, and if I enjoy it, there is a sequel. The person recommended Night Circus, which is one of their favorites, but it wasn't one of mine. But okay, I really appreciated having this book on my physical TBR to actually read and experience. So yeah, I think I'll just pass it on to someone else who might appreciate this more. I'll remove my tabs, of course. Definitely gave me the closer to Halloween vibes. It's like the nights are getting longer, circus kind of feel, which is not something that I can experience in Singapore. We only have sun and rain. Okay, I need to talk about spoilers. So here is the spoiler warning. I was quite shocked when suddenly people are dying. So like Julian died and then Tella also died, but they came back. Apparently Legend is not the person that Scarlett thought was Legend. Actually, Legend just has multiple actors to act as Legend. I don't think they have ever seen Legend, but turns out Tella has struck some kind of deal with Legend via letters, and so I think that will continue on in the second book, but I'm not really intrigued enough to want to read the second book. So yeah, I'll just be stopping here. Appreciated the recommendation, and I would say it was a good experience to actually read this once. And yeah, so now let's talk about the next book. So I have actually already started The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I'm sure everybody has heard about this, but let me just tell you the synopsis for those that have not heard of The House in the Cerulean Sea. So basically, we follow Linus Baker, who is 40 years old. He lives in a tiny house with a devious cat called Calliope, and he's a caseworker at the department in charge of magical youth. So he oversees the well-being of children in government-sanctioned orphanages. So if he visits the orphanage and he feels that the children are not being well cared for, he will write a report, and I think the children will be transferred to one of their schools. So department in charge of magical youth is shortened into Daikami. He's the kind that he just does what is expected of his job and he doesn't explore more. So for example, he doesn't think about visiting or finding out what happened to the children after he reported that this orphanage needs to close down, for example. So one day he gets called by the extremely upper management to go on this super confidential mission to travel to Marsyas Island Orphanage. So it's located on this island in a secluded part of the island, surrounded by the forest and everything, and it's right by the Cerulean Sea, the ocean. In this orphanage, 6 dangerous children live there. A gnome, a sprite, a wyvern, an unidentifiable green blob that reminded me of a monster that I saw in Monsters Inc., a boy who can shapeshift into a Pomeranian, and the Antichrist. There's also 2 other characters. So one is Arthur Parnassus, who is their caretaker, and Miss Chapelwhite, who is also a sprite who owns the island. He has been tasked to go there on this confidential mission because most people do not know about the existence of this orphanage of dangerous children. Linus's job is to report back because their reports from the orphanage have been quite sparse and few and far between. So he has to go there and determine whether the children are being well cared for, whether or not they are likely to bring about the end of the world. So right now I'm 33% in. According to my library book, I'm page 296 out of page 896. So I have previously read Under the Whispering Door by the same author, TJ Klune, in a previous video where I read the Goodreads Choice Awards nominees, so you can go and check it out up above. Both books give me similar cozy vibes, which is why I think everybody recommended this book to me, and I saved this for the last because I feel like I'm gonna enjoy this the most. And the children are really super cute, like oh my god, they're so endearing, and it's like very sad because they're children but they're deemed as dangerous. And people, okay, so on the island there is this village, and the village are very hostile towards the people in the orphanage, especially like the children, because they're deemed as dangerous, but they are paid by the government to maintain their silence about the existence of them. And it's just very sad for them to experience such discrimination at such a young age because of their powers, their gifts. So far, Linus, he just reached the orphanage and is slowly getting to know the children, slowly getting to know their living conditions, how they're being cared for by Arthur and things like that. So I would say I'm quite at the beginning. Not much to say yet, but I feel like it can potentially become very cute. So I don't really feel the 5-star feeling yet, but I hope as I get more into this book, I'll get that feeling. So yeah, I'll update you again when I get further into the book. Okay, let's try brown sugar, oat milk, iced shaken espresso. Oh, that's sweeter than I thought. Not bad.
I'm hopeful, yes I am hopeful for today. I'm hopeful, yes I am hopeful for today. Take this music and use it, let it
God. Oh my god, I need to show you this. So I just finished House in the Cerulean Sea. Trigger warnings for mentioned abuse, anxiety, trauma related, bigotry, body shaming, bullying, child abuse, internalized fat phobia, homophobia, microaggressions, and violence against children. In the end, I decided to give this 4.5 stars. If you saw the clip before this, you would have seen me reading the last few pages of The House in the Cerulean Sea. Here I tilted it so that you can see my face. I really enjoyed the story a lot, and the ending really made me tear up because I'm so happy that these children have found a family in Arthur and Zoe, and now, I guess it's spoilers, and now Linus as well. This story is really quite predictable with the ending, but it just made me very happy all the same. I really couldn't tell what was going to happen in the middle of the book and everything, like what kind of plot points would come up, but it was really intriguing and fascinating to read about, and it really felt like a warm hug. And all the interactions between the different children, how they view themselves as a family. Lucy called Sal his brother and things like that, and they view Arthur as a father. Oh my god, just the world is a really bad place that hopefully is starting to change a little bit with what happened at the end of The House in the Cerulean Sea, with Linus and Arthur's efforts to change this place, and how the village is slowly starting to change with the help of Helen, who is the mayor of the village, and how the dichotomy has started to go through structural reforms as well, such that they closed down their schools because it was deemed to be discriminatory towards magical beings. Linus is starting to stand up and speak with his voice on what is happening within dichotomy and how he plans to help change it, and it's a really like a step towards the greater good. So it really felt very good, very cozy vibes. I totally see where the hype is coming from. I feel like it's gonna be one of my favorites as well. While that being said, it's also important to address the controversy surrounding this book. So I spent like quite a bit of time researching through everything and looking through all the reviews that I could find, and definitely whatever I'm gonna say is probably not going to be very well worded, so I'll leave like links down below about everybody whose reviews I've read and how they are obviously doing a better job than me at curating and formulating their thoughts, because I obviously will continue to babble and it's just I know myself. Regarding the controversy, okay, so if you're not aware of what the controversy is about, in short, TJ Klune, which is the author, he said in this interview that he drew inspiration from the 60s Scoop. He already figured out the general plot about an Orwellian world where magical children face bigotry and discrimination for merely existing, but the story didn't become clear to him until he learned about the 60s Scoop in Canada. So these are all my like notes about it, so I'm just gonna talk about them. So what the 60s Scoop in Canada is about is basically in the 1950s through 1980s, indigenous children were taken from their homes, about 20,000, and they were taken from their homes and families and placed into government-sanctioned facilities like residential schools, and the goal was for primarily white middle-class families across Canada, US and Europe to adopt these children. I need to preface this by saying that I'm not indigenous, so this was like my first time hearing about the controversy as well, so you can choose not to listen to me or any of my opinions because I'm not an Own Voices reviewer, so I'm just like formulating my thoughts and opinions about the book. So it's also up to you to have your own opinion about the book and whether or not you decide to pick it up. Yeah, that's my disclaimer. So the aim was to eradicate the culture and languages of the country's indigenous populations. So these children in the residential schools, they were prohibited from speaking their native languages and they had to adopt their school's religious denomination. Many of these children were beaten, verbally and sexually abused, and thousands died from the disease, neglect, and suicide. Why there was this gap between the publishing of this book and how everybody was raving about it and eventually resorting to cancelling the book was because this discovery of the remains of 215 First Nation children near Kamloops Indian Residential School in July 2021, as well as the subsequent discovery of 751 unmarked graves at the Maryville Indian Residential School. I'm so sorry if I butchered the name. Reviewers that were against The House in the Cerulean Sea and TJ Klune were saying that he was romanticizing and wanting to profit off of this tragic part of history. They also felt that he wasn't an indigenous author, so who was he to come in and take their suffering, this tragic part of their history, and turn it into such a happy, fluffy kind of story that resulted in romance at the end. I've read a lot of different reviews, as I mentioned, and one of the reviews from an Indigenous reviewer brought up a valid point about how even though there's conflicting opinions from Indigenous reviewers, so some feel that the story was detached enough that they didn't even realize or feel that it was hurting their history in any way. There was also reviews that were saying about how even taking inspiration from this and having such a happy, fun story about it was kind of hurtful enough. And the fact that since he drew inspiration from this, likening Indigenous children to children with magical abilities that were essentially deemed as monsters doesn't really send off a good message. So one Indigenous reviewer brought up a valid point about how those hurt by this wouldn't even want to pick up the book in the first place. So there may be a lot more dissent and hurtful feelings from Indigenous reviewers if they were to actually pick up and read the book, which made me realize that that's true. Another problem that people have with the book is about how there was this whole white savior complex of Linus being a caseworker, a government official essentially coming in to save the day and resolve the conflict between the village and the orphanage on the island. But personally for me, for that point, I don't think Linus's ethnicity was stated. I guess perhaps his actions were suggestive as such of like a white man from the government coming in to try to save the day. But even in the book itself, Linus has also stated how people don't really listen to authority that much, and in the end he and Helen is the male, I think I said already, Helen was about to be hit by rocks before Arthur stepped in and said his piece, and I felt that it was more of the combined efforts that were triggered by Linus's presence that allowed both Helen and Arthur to realize that more needs to be done to resolve this conflict. His presence isn't just the fact that because he's a caseworker or a government official, because as mentioned before, there was a previous caseworker that came to the orphanage which turned out to be one of the extremely upper management people, but his presence didn't result in such a change. So I personally felt that it was because it was more of Linus's personality, that he really cared about the welfare of these children. So by standing up for them and things like that, he brought about this change, and it's because he is Linus Baker, not just he is a government official, if that makes sense. Regarding the controversy, it's really not my place to say anything, but I just want to give some thoughts. So in the story, in the house in the Cerulean Sea, these are orphanages wherein the children have been abandoned, likely because of their magical abilities or their parents not wanting to take care of them. In one case of the children, nobody even knows who his parents are, even what species he is. So he has literally been abandoned and they have taken him in to take care of him. Linus's job as a caseworker is to make sure that these orphanages are doing a good job taking care of these children, and no way was the intention of these orphanages to deny their abilities and try to eradicate their magical abilities or even trying to get rid of them as a whole. I didn't feel that it was genocide because they were literally orphans that had no one else other than these orphanages to take care of them. There have been orphanages that Linus went to and the masters of the orphanages were discriminating against them, which is Linus's job to make sure that these orphanages shut down. But I guess the issue may not lie in how similar the story was based on this history, but rather this inspiration in the first place. I recognized how he isn't Indigenous and this story really isn't his to tell or really draw inspiration from, and the way that he worded it was very hurtful to Indigenous reviewers. As I mentioned earlier about how the likening Indigenous children to children with magical abilities and monsters doesn't really sit well with me as well. And I guess it's the issue of making it fantasy, because in the interview, Clune was saying how it wasn't his story to tell and so he turned it into a fantasy instead. But it's kind of like avoiding the problem, and it doesn't make the problem go away, because even if it is fantasy, it's still reflecting a history that was very real to these people in the past. And it probably makes the issue a bit worse with this case of likening them to monsters in this fantasy story. But at the same time, I also feel like people's reactions have gone quite overboard. So the cancel culture is extremely scary. So I've seen how people have been changing their reviews from 5 stars to 1 star. They direct their anger and hate to TJ Clune to the point where he wanted to commit suicide during Pride Month and he needed to up his antidepressants to cope. It's one thing to not agree with something an author has done, but it's another thing to cancel the book entirely and degrade the author for this work to the point where his character is being bashed such that the author even wants to take his own life. Without this book, right, I wouldn't have even known about the 60s scoop, and it brought up like very interesting discussions about how authors should be careful with how they word their intentions and where to draw their inspiration from, and it allowed for this whole discussion and conversation in the first place. This book also definitely contains messages that can be very inspiring to other people, for example, about how those with differences shouldn't be alienated and shunned with prejudice, and change is hard but it can start with a small few, and the queer representation was very present and good as well. And again, I'm not a queer reviewer, so I can't really say like much about it, but I felt that it was represented really well. I really don't think that the author should be cancelled, and the book shouldn't be as well. Like, don't pick up the book if you don't feel comfortable with how it has hurt the history and the feelings of this group of people, but also don't cancel everything, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I really feel for this book, and I'm sad at how it has went like really overboard in terms of like TJ Kloon's mental and physical health and everything. Again, I'm not an indigenous reviewer, so I guess my opinion doesn't really matter. That's just my 2 cents on everything. Again, I'll leave all the links down below. I also wanted to talk about my concern about fat phobia in this book. In this book, there were a lot of comments and mentions of Linus's size and how he's round and overweight and things like that, and so I was really concerned about the bigness of this and whether or not it would turn into like this internalized message that the author is trying to say. But I personally thought that it was handled okay. So Linus, he clearly has a lot of internalized fat phobia towards himself, and he gets like really defensive when asked about his waistline, when people make comments about his roundness, which is suggestive of how people have treated him throughout his life for him to have such internalized fat phobia, which I can really relate to because I experienced this as well. And I was kind of uncomfortable with how his size and roundness was mentioned so many times, and the author would say things like how he could be silent despite his size, he would bump into the tables in his workplace, etc, so it may be uncomfortable to some. And there was one scene where Talia, who is the gnome, commented on how his size can't survive on rabbit food alone, which, thinking about it again, really makes me feel like it's quite problematic as well, because it's suggestive that round people need to eat more, but that's not always the case. And at the same time, she also feels that there's nothing wrong about being round, and after that, Lucy also said he wanted to be round and blew himself into a round shape and said he's either Talia or Mr. Baker. And reading that scene again made me think on how it's really quite weird. It can feel very hurtful to some people. And another sentence was that Talia said she loves being round because there's more of her to love. So I guess it could be put down to the ignorance of children, but yeah. And Linus eventually learns to be comfortable in his own skin, and it was said that he lost a bit of weight, but not by a lot. His clothes are looser, but he's still rotund. And in the epilogue, it was also said that he begrudgingly accepted it when Arthur had made his appreciation known. I'm glad that he's learning to be comfortable in his own skin, but he should be happy of his skin regardless of others' opinions. He shouldn't feel okay with it just because Arthur likes it, even though it's difficult, and I know it's very difficult. So I guess the discourse was important for him to reach that step at the end, but the offhand comments made by the author, I felt like could have personally been done without, you don't need to mention it so many times. I'm not gonna forget that he's round, And so this is where my 0.5 was deducted off from. So in the end, I gave it 4.5 stars. Really still did enjoy it, and it really feels like a warm hug. And I guess it's ultimately up to you whether or not you decide to pick it up and have your own opinion about the controversy. So I guess this brings me to the end of this video, and I really thank everybody who has given me a recommendation. I feel like I might continue with the other books that are recommended in another video next year maybe, and it really did fulfill my cozy vibes cravings. That sounds weird to call it a craving, but yeah, I really enjoyed this experience. Let me know if you want me to do more of these kind of videos, and I guess this video turns out to be I can mostly trust your recommendations. I guess I'll end off here. If you're still watching, please comment a sea emoji, the ocean wave one. I hope you're having a great week, a great day, whenever or wherever you're watching this. Remember to hydrate yourselves. Yeah, I'll see you in my next video.